Hello to all the builders, the investors, and all of the people that are watching online. My name is Christopher Perceptions, and I flew all the way from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to tell you that the no-code devs are coming. What does that mean? How does no-code work in the same space as Web3, specifically Bitcoin? This is what we're going to talk about. So, how can no-code drive mass adoption of Bitcoin and Bitcoin L2s? Going to dive a little bit into that. So ultimately, it starts with giving you a glimpse of my story, how I got here, Bitcoin development at large, L2 development, mass adoption, what is no code, how does this play out in the advent of AI, and then a glimpse of this platform that we currently have live in a V1 stage. So as mentioned earlier, Christopher Perceptions is my name, very long story, legal name, but yes, there's that. And also worked with the Stacks Foundation. So that is FAM, love the Stacks Foundation. But let's get into the weeds. We love Bitcoin. We love building with it. But how do you technically build on Bitcoin? You generally have to start with a language known as BitScript or Miniscript. Slightly cumbersome on the original side, but on the Miniscript side, it is a little simpler, but still not as modular as other languages. What does this look like on the L2 side? Concerning L2s, looking at Satoshi Nakamoto, who stated this once in the Bitcoin Talk Forum, an L2 is something that is completely separate from the network, completely separate blockchain, yet shares the same CPU power with Bitcoin. So there are a lot of definitions that are flying around, but let's look at what Satoshi said. So based off of this, we have varying languages within the Bitcoin L2 space. You have Rust, you have Solidity, you have Clarity, etc. And all of these languages differ. So let's dive a little bit into that. From the standpoint of C++, you have general purpose programming, which is more so systems. And then you have Rust, which is kind of a darling amongst developers for various reasons, because of the safety and the performance. And then you have Solidity, which was obviously ushered into the world by Ethereum and their community. And then from the standpoint of Bitcoin L2s that have something that's a little bit more nascent, that's where Clarity comes into play. And this is just the beginning. The landscape of L2s is drastically changing. And with this, you have rollups, you have protocols, you have L2s, you have sidechains, state chains, etc. So what does this look like for a builder who's coming into the space? They have ideas, they want to build something, they have so many options to choose from, and they have multiple languages that they would have to also add into their repertoire. Let's look into the actual nitty-gritty of it. So as you can see here, we have kind of a snapshot from Electric Capital. At the Bitcoin layer, at the L1, we have less than 400 full-time devs. For something that has $1.4 trillion, you would think that we would have more. So that's kind of a bottleneck. Looking at Lightning, less than 120 at the time of this snapshot as of July 1st. So the bottlenecks are real. Let's look at the L2. Concerning stacks, concerning rootstock, premier L2s amongst the space, and we can see here that they're less than 100 at this current point in time. So how do we change this? How do we get more developers and more builders within the Bitcoin space? It has to be an easier way, right? So for me personally, I started out learning front-end development, HTML, CSS, little JavaScript, etc. Fell in love with what was possible with Bitcoin, wondered if there were Bitcoin smart contracts, found Stacks roughly 3 years ago, started building Clarity smart contracts, and I wondered if mass adoption was to be a thing, we need to onboard more people. So there needs to be an easier way to onboard more Bitcoin builders. So is there? It's pretty simple, actually. We have to build builders. Rather than building dApps, we need to also keep in mind of building builders. So what does that look like? It's pretty simple, no code. So for this to be a technical track, how does no code play into this? No code is actually a language as well as a software development method. So breaking it down, no code is a software development method that allows for anyone to build an application without writing code. This is not a too good to be true thing. This is possible. This is happening. And we're going to dive into a little bit of that. But first, we're going to tier it up. There are different variations of coding. So there's traditional code, which is on the right side, mid to advanced programming skills, full customization, no limitations. You're only limited by your knowledge and how much time you have. From the standpoint of low code, more so citizen developers, tech savvy people, basic programming, slightly faster than traditional programming, not as much customization. And then the low code to no code side of things. If we were to look at that, that is generally for non-developers, people who are business users, such as founders, maybe non-technical founders even, minimal to no programming knowledge, limited to predefined templates or tools, relies on pre-built integrations, etc. But what about the market? If no code exists, there has to be a market for this thing, right? The market is in these facts. It cuts development time by 90%. If you can get the proper pre-built situation for your idea and slightly customize it, you can get to market quicker. And for startups, speed is very important. From the standpoint of the actual market size, this is an estimate. It's technically projected to be higher, but they're saying at least $65 billion by 2027. It's a lot higher, trust me. And then also, Microsoft, Amazon, these are entities that have low code and no code platforms. You can look into that. But Microsoft predicts that 450 million out of 500 million new applications will be built utilizing low code or no code. On top of this, there have been companies all over the world that have raised funding from venture capital firms, angel investors, et cetera, to the tune of over $500 million. So not only is this a thing, not only is it happening, but it also is democratizing development. How does that play into Bitcoin? Before we get there, we're going to talk about how AI can speed things up. This isn't a doom and gloom thing. I think with no code and with AI, seasoned developers will actually be able to get to market quicker, as well as low code people and no code people. But to just pause here briefly, the CEO of NVIDIA made headlines because he said the death of coding is upon us because of AI, saying that you don't need to teach your children how to code because AI will do it for you. So combined with no code, it has the power to turn everyone into a developer simply by asking questions, which is powerful. Now, getting into the weeds regarding how does this apply to Bitcoin? Especially considering less than 1% of the world knows how to technically program, we have to activate the 99% in order to bring about mass adoption, not only from the standpoint of dApps, but also from builders. No code cuts development time by 90%, and with AI, it helps anyone to build. So this is where no code clarity comes into fruition. We make it easy for anyone to build on Bitcoin using AI and no code. So the framework is pretty simple. We exist within this weird intersection of Bitcoin and Bitcoin layers, AI, and no-code technology stacks. To move along a little quicker, how does this flow? What does the work actually look like for a no-code dev utilizing our platform? It's pretty simple. The entire life cycle of a dApp, it generally stems among these three things. You need to have a UI UX, something that a user can see, something that they can experience, which is a front end. You need a back end, a way to not only manage data, but also potentially servers, et cetera. And then lastly, the Web3 component, that's the contract. So within this life cycle, this is where no-code clarity comes into play. So how it works is you sign up for our platform, and all you would need to do is have either an X-First wallet, which also means you can do this on mobile, which is awesome, building in Bitcoin on mobile, or a Leather wallet on desktop. Once you sign in, you can go to the front-end design workspace, and you can prompt and create your pages of your dApp simply by typing it in. And as you can see here, not only are you able to prompt, but you're also able to see the code as well as have a UI view of what the code looks like. Anyone can go on Claude or ChatGPT and they can get the code spit out. That's great. But if you're among the 99% of the world that you have code, what do you do with it? For us, we would know, okay, I can put this in my repo. I can potentially use Vercel to deploy this for free. I can test. But before we get to that point, I need to understand what this is. The UI view allows for people to not only see what they've prompted, get code familiar, again, building builders. This platform subtly teaches users how to code, but they also can live prototype. They can change things as they become more code familiar. From the side frame of backend workflow management, a lot of people might not know this, but you actually, whoops, you go back. You actually are able to build applications in a no-code environment using Airtable, Notion, Bubble, Zapier, all of these things. And this can manage and automote, which is a little cute word we made up, automote some of your Dapp data through the back end. So all you would have to do is create something within the platform. It's gonna load up as a template. You're gonna go on Airtable or Bubble. You're gonna get your API key, input it here, your table name, input it there, hit implement, and now you have a front end that's able to accept data and streamline it on the back end, all without code. Lastly, talking about clarity and smart contracts, what does it look like for someone to create a smart contract from a prompt? What do they do next? Generally speaking, once you create a contract, you would test it, you would potentially have it audited. We have a built-in way where people can, from one prompt, not only generate code, but it also is pre-audited before testnet and mainnet. There's also a disclaimer because we want to make sure that people get proper auditing done. We know very reputable audit firms, so it's very, very important that people test before they deploy on mainnet. It's very important. And we want to make sure that our no-code devs know this. But once they get to the point of actually testing, we have some really cool tools such as Gecko Security as well as Havoc that's going to streamline and make this process a lot easier. So shout out to Havoc and Gecko Security. Now, what does the traction look like for this thing? All seems cool, but are people actually using this? So not only do we have some no-code devs actually in the building and in the audience, but we also have a growing community. So we originally launched a lifetime pass NFT on the Gamma platform, and it completely sold out, was trending. So there's interest here. On top of that, we have a little bit over 150 no-code devs and 50 advocates all over the world that are not only building and learning, but also evangelizing the platform and the potential of what is possible to build with no code. And then lastly, from the Stacks Foundation standpoint, we received roughly 100,000 plus in grant funding that helped us go from stealth to V0 to our current live V1. But that's not all. On June 21st, we also launched a token that enables people to hold the token and abstract one component of deploying an application, which is generally the transaction fee. This is something that goes live at the end of the year. If holders have roughly 100,000 no-code clarity tokens, we take care of the deployment fee. As Bitcoin L2s grow in adoption, deploying is going to get a lot more expensive. This is one thing that we want to abstract to make sure that no-code devs have a frictionless experience from brain, front end, back end, contract, deploy. All of it's taken care of. And that's not all. We also have done hackathons. There are no-code hackathons, which is really cool because this was something that we did in 2022 in partnership with Miami-Dade College and all of these people non-technical. And this was something that we did out of pocket. We wanted to make sure that, for one, R&D is important, research and development, to make sure that this is something that we want to commit to for the next 5, 10, 20 years potentially. And not only was it a value add, but the winning team was actually a father-daughter duo. They learned a no-code tool, they ideated, they mapped it out, they presented, so they learned how to pitch and all of this within 3 days, and they launched something that could actually work, and they won first prize. And it wasn't just some cheesy like poster card thing, they actually won cash for this within 3 days. And we're doing it again, except this time it's gonna be global and it's gonna be virtual. Along with this, and prizes for winners, They become no-code advocates within our ecosystem, and it also allows for them to have on-chain reputation by way of zero authority and a reputation badge. And I have a big, big, big announcement. This is a world first. But first, let's talk about a little roadmap, all right? We have a lot that's coming through the pipeline. We're gonna beef up dynamic styling to make it a lot easier for people to generate front end that plays nice with Clarity code. So we're integrating Stacks.js into some of our workflows. We're gonna have AI starter contracts pre-audited so that people can get going if they wanna do something in the NFT space, if they wanna do DeFi. Also, being able to map out something for people who are more visual and then uploading it to our platform to give people a head start. So you can literally go from diagram to Dapp within a few moments. That's coming soon. By the end of year next year, roughly January 2025, we're going to implement drag and drop UI components. A lot of Bitcoin dApps look kind of similar. You have to have like a login, you have to have a hero section, you have to have all of these different components. What if you didn't have to prop for them? You can just drag and drop them, change the color. That's coming. And then we also have a secondary pair on a DEX loading very soon. This is the big announcement that I've been holding. So we have partnered with and are integrating Arch Network. This is an L1 infrastructure layer that's going to make it possible for people to interact with the L1, which makes no-code Clarity the world's first Bitcoin Dapp Launchpad for L1 and L2. Really excited about this. This is going to be live by end of year when their mainnet goes live. So in summary, we are a Dapp Launchpad, making more development possible, increasing engagement for communities, actively activating Bitcoin and Bitcoin layers, allowing for greater incentive for people to build, and democratizing access for all. So with that, I leave you with this. Scan this QR code, and you will be taken directly to nocodeclarity.ai. You can learn a little bit more about us. There's a contact section if you have questions, and that's my time. Thank you so much.